All right. Yeah. Hey, I can talk about stuff. I can certainly do that. How's everybody doing? Good.
And
Good.
Excellent. All right. Are we ready? 10:32.
We're ready.
All right. Well, I don't know how ready we are. That's what we're here to talk about. So I see that some of you are glad to see the semester is over. So the part of this discussion was one to talk about all of our experiences for those that taught this semester, the platforms they use, how the transition went, problems, things that really worked really well. So that was one part of this discussion. I don't know if you could call that a bitch session or whatever, but we can all sit here and complain about good things and bad things and make a list of what to do and what not to do. So that's part of it. The other part is to share with everyone resources that are available as we do seriously plan on moving towards some combined form of instruction come fall. I think it's optimistic to think that we're all going to be face-to-face in the fall. I think that it's going to end up being some sort of mixed delivery. Some universities are already moving towards all online, and we just have to be ready for it. So the university has done a really good job, I think, at least in collating resources that they've had in place, but putting them in one place for all of us to access and help us begin to move our course content online. So this is not something probably that we all planned on doing this summer. Working on our courses. Normally you finish teaching, right? You forget about it till August, the week before, and then you go right back to it again. But this summer is going to be a little different. We're not going to be able to go on vacation, so at least we can spend our time, right, toiling away at improving our courses and moving everything online and doing videos. So I sent you all a document just shortly, a little bit ago. At least all of you that were on the list that I had for this for this meeting. If I missed you, let me know and I'll shoot it over your way. Just send me a chat and I'll send it your way. So the list that I sent you is just a non-traditional instruction teaching resources list. And there are many lists out there. It is overwhelming, the amount of content that is available from either our ADI or the university. So yeah, I see I'm getting text. So I'll send this to you all right now, those that I missed. But there's a lot of places where all of this information is. And what I just tried to do here in this outline that many of you have in front of you was to very simply, provide a very quick one-point link that I'll send you to. So the URL's there, a link that'll get you to those different web pages. And I'll go through those here. I'll share my screen here in a minute and go through those resources. Just let me get quickly an email out to those of you that didn't receive this. So make sure that you in the chat window, just let me know. All right, so many of you are saying you didn't receive it, but I know that I sent it to many of you. So maybe it just hasn't gotten there yet. But what I'll do is I'll just quickly share my screen and we'll go through these. Sorry, I'm just reading my chat window here. A random cat, that's good. Sorry.
this was one of the challenges of online teaching.
Yeah, cats, animals, dogs, kids, I get it.
Yeah.
So, well, just keep checking your email. It should come. My email indicates that I've sent it to all of those that have. Yeah, everybody that showed up there.
Are you on the college's coronavirus and then teaching resources page?
I'm not anywhere yet, but I'll share it with you. Just a sec, folks. Just bear with me a minute.
So I guess while Dave's doing that, I can tell you some of what I heard yesterday at the chair and director meeting. Tim West is participating in one of these 19 groups that's trying to figure out how we're all going to come back. The university is definitely committed to trying to get some students on campus this fall. They're thinking about things like freshmen and seniors only, no sophomores and juniors, because the freshmen won't come if they can't be on campus, and the seniors have experiential learning they have to do, which would be difficult to pull off online. They're also thinking freshmen and sophomores, like they're looking at it every possible way. They're thinking starting early and finishing before Thanksgiving, trying to get people out before primary flu season hits. They're definitely thinking that most classes are probably going to be some kind of a blended online, maybe with the large ones all being online only, but others being some sort of online and in-person. I think right now, they're literally anything is possible and could go. And so they're going to be reaching out to everyone in the college who's scheduled to teach in the fall. Carmen's office will, and they'll probably be reiterating many of the things that Dave is getting ready to say here. But I think it's great that we're thinking about this early, and I strongly encourage anybody who's got teaching in the fall to be spending their summer coming up more than likely with at least 2 to 3 options for how your class might go. I think the more you can think about that and provide different options and scenarios for yourself, the better place you're going to be as we move through the summer and start to hear about what we're looking at. I wish I could tell you it was going to be earlier and more definitive, but I think the sands are really shifting under our feet, and I think they're going to continue to shift for a year or so.
All right, so I resent this to many of you. So I think, Aaron, I see that you maybe received it. Olga, I see you nodding. All right, so most of you should have the document then that I sent. If you don't, again, just jump over in the chat and send it to me. Send me another chat and I'll shoot it your way again. So I'm gonna just share my screen here real quick so that you can see. There you go. All right, so this is what I'm looking at right now, this form. So I just went through here, and again, there's a lot of stuff on each one of these links that's going to show up on each page or each place. So a lot of duplication going on here on this with these links. But what I just wanted to do is collate the things, the main pages where you can find this information, and I'll go through these. And for those of you that have used some of these tools like Uja and other things, and share your experience as we go through these, and let me know what pros and cons were. So the first link that I have here is just the coronavirus, response, and this is from I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. So if you go, the university, so our college, excuse me, this is our our homepage for our college. Way to get to the teaching resources, they put on their page these coronavirus response resources. So there's a bunch of stuff. The first one is the teaching resources link, and if we go there, at least the one that pertains to us, Carmen in her office have put together several resources here for us to use that are pertinent to help us, build classes for online content and whatnot. But importantly, from this web page is, as you're doing this, if you feel lost or you feel like you need a consultation or someone to help you move through this process, there are several places in which you can go through here and request help. You know, ask Carmen, really go to Carmen first, and the folks at the Center for Student Success really putting together a good, some good resources. You can even do a live Zoom, see one-on-one virtual consultation with them. They'll walk you through how to do what it is that they're doing to help us. So there are a bunch of links here. The Teach Anywhere website, which I'll get to here in a minute, which that's the university provided website, but I just wanted to point you in the direction of the college and what the college is doing and what the ADI office is doing. Now, if you have not done so already, I suggest that you go, and it's here somewhere, but if you do not have yet or have not participated in the College of Ag, this is the Canvas course shell. This is the ADI Cafe Teaching Resources. If you're using Canvas, you do not have access to this course shell, the ADI Cafe Teaching Resource shell, send Carmen an email. I have a link to that here. I mentioned that here in the Google or the Word document that I send you. One of the bullets there says, if you don't already, ask Carmen for access to this web page. Because on this web page, this is at least from our college, again, ADI, under the modules page, they have a bunch of teaching resources. And again, some of the things that we'll talk about with respect to bringing your course for online instruction. So there's, of course, the Cafe Teaching Resources, and each one of these modules, again, has all sorts of things. They have tutorials, tips for teaching online. So this is a really a choose your own adventure way, but the point is that you have the link now. Ask Carmen for access to this page so that when it does arise, as far as teaching and how to administer exams online, which we'll talk about a little bit, other resources that they have available for us as teachers and instructors. There is a lot of information here on this page. So get that Canvas shell so that you have access to all of these things. Everybody there? How many of you do have this? Raise your hand. Okay, and many of you, good. Just making sure. So good. All right, so the other part, and Carmen references it on this page, you know, it's referenced here, is the Teach Anywhere. So this is our again, our college cafe's webpage, teaching resources page. Carmen mentions here, there's a link to the Teach Anywhere, and I have a link in that Word document as well, where these are the university-wide resources that have been made available for us, collated in one place. And under the headings, you know, there's a bunch of things, quality designs. This is just talking about the design of your course in your Canvas template. As I mentioned in the faculty meeting, the university is wanting to move towards a unified Canvas shell that we all use. Same background, same modules, the way that it looks, that the students aren't having to, find the information in different places. We all put it. And for any of you that have kids at home that are teaching, I can attest to, I can understand why it is that they want to do this. My middle schooler, some faculty some teachers are using Google Classroom, some are using Canvas, some are using something else, and it's quite a headache to try to navigate and find where each person is putting everything. So we spend a lot of time doing that. So I think what the university is trying to do here is unify the experience for our online and now our face-to-face students. Removes a little of our creativity in how we prepare our pages. And for those of you, I include myself in this, who have gone through the effort of designing your Canvas page, and it's fairly ornate. It is a little bit to get it into that template. But
Dave,
just briefly,
Dave,
yep, go ahead.
question.
Yep.
The Carmen's office put out a Canvas shell too, right? Is that the same as the university shell?
Yes, so I think what Carmen's doing, it's a great question, and she sent an announcement out about the shell. I haven't found it very easy to find the shell, and maybe it is on the shell that he's wanting us to use is this um, is the,
University one, basically.
well, it is the university one for sure, but maybe it's the one that she's designed, again, as the College of Ag through this one.
Okay.
But,
Dave, actually, they already switched to the new shell, and it's universal because I'm teaching this summer, and when I was trying to put the course, I find out that there was a lot of new things. So Dolores is the one who is helping with that, but it looks like it's universal. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
look like the one that you just showed. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, so I'll show the one I think that you're using, and
Mhm.
there's a link there in that again, that Word document that I sent to the templates, the university templates. So quality, that's, I think it's under this tab. So if we go through the Teach Anywhere, the quality design tab, there's a checklist you can download. This is the whole package, but a checklist of what your design of your web page should have. But if right here's the templates in organization, I believe these are the ones that you're probably using, Olga. So the university has provided templates for 4-week, 6-week, 8-week, 12-week, and a 16-week course. So depending on what it is that you're teaching. So you can download these templates, and then there are instructions under here on how to upload that template into Canvas and use that course shell.
It's
To
actually
build-
automatic. It's already there for your
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, so what Carmen has started to do, and she mentioned this, so as your courses are come online in Canvas, they will automatically put your stuff in there. Is that right, Olga?
Not exactly. Template is there, and there is like example for Gene 100, and you need to go
Yeah.
and modify.
Yeah, so
They still have a lot
exactly.
of glitches, and you need to contact. Only they can change it. You know.
Yeah, it is. So I think this is what the templates look like. Similar. You know, this is just a blank, or basically a shell of a course where they have placeholders for the different modules, and you have to then go in and move your course content into this structure. Like I said, for those of us who already have a course built and have to try to then migrate our content into this, it's not, if you're starting from scratch, it's great. It's not that hard. But you know, for myself, for example, where I have a course that's fairly, you know, I already have my 366 course. There's modules. There's a lot of content in here that has to then get migrated into their template, because they don't want us using this template because it's not their unified experience. So yeah, there's going to be some time involved in that. But back to, let me just get back to where I was. So yeah, when you log on to Canvas and you're going to teach, there will be a general course shell there for you that you then have to migrate your stuff into and build your course again, if you have not yet done that. So is that what you're doing now, Olga?
Yeah, that's what I did on Monday, actually.
Yeah.
Because I thought I will just, you know, transfer my course from previous summer and it will be clear, but it look actually different because they have like getting start here and then different buttons, and you cannot remove the buttons like for assignments, for modules, you know, yourself. So, but they're really, really helpful. Like they immediately respond. You can chat one-on-one or you can exchange emails, so that, but it's not as the same as previous Canvas. At least not immediately. I would spend a couple days. Like let yourself time.
Yeah,
Like you
for sure.
cannot just transfer your course really easily. It's different.
Yeah.
So Olga, is every lecture period one module? You create one module for each lecture period?
It is. It's how, that's how standard kind of template is. But I'm just doing ABT 395, which is research course and research presentation. So I don't have even like module. Mine main things it's like announcements and assignments. So I needed to remove all modules basically. And they got really concerned about it and contacted me immediately. It's like, why did you modify the standard template? I was like, uh-oh. But yeah, you basically do every lecture separately for every module.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's why I find a little bit, again, I appreciate the unified look and experience of what they're trying to do there, but I don't necessarily, it removes the creativity in how it is that we set up our courses, and it also can be restricting as you're, I have each course, or sorry, I have my modules as weeks or as topical. So, in this module, we're going to cover soil texture, and that may be 3 lectures. So it's not, a module isn't an individual lecture. So I guess the whole point of this discussion is we're going to have to get comfortable with the module and see how much we can push back on them to make it fit what we want it to be. But
I think it's customizable.
Yeah.
I think as long as you tell them what you want, they'll modify it for you.
Yeah, I think that's the problem, is they'll modify it for you. So there's that extra step that you have to contact them, right?
Yeah, I couldn't display my syllabus file, and finally, following their instructions, I contacted them and they're like, oh, I don't know what's going on, but only we can do it. I was like, I cannot even display my syllabus file. It was a little, but I think maybe they will figure out those glitches. But yes, there is a lot of control from another side. Yeah.
I'm also curious as to, how are they policing it? Are they not going to let you launch your course if it's not using their template?
I don't know. I just got emailed right away. As soon as I changed homepage, I was contacted. But it was very polite email offering assistance, basically. They knew that I'm cannot figure out how to do something.
Well, this question about modules, I think it's somewhat definable the way you want. It can be weekly lectures, topical. I think there's some flexibility in what a module really is based on the examples I've seen so far.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, we can make a module whatever we want it to be, right? That's how it should be. That's the beauty. I mean, they have modules in this course shell here listed as course, so they're topical here, I think. Well, no, here they have course, 1. I guess this is 1, 2 modules. So this is, I guess, a lecture. 4, 5. But when Carmen was setting up hers, she said that the template would have like 45 modules, and that we could delete them as we like and make them what we want. So anyway, I think like Olga said, they'll work with us. We can push back and make it what we want it to be, as long as it conforms in some way to what as long as it looks similar. As long as it looks similar. Like I said, for modules for 366, they're topical. Soil texture and structure module, it's not by lecture week, it's topical when there are videos and things built within lecture notes. So hopefully they'll be willing to let us do what we want within the confines of the template, the look. So anyway, that is where you find, so moving through the Teaching Anywhere resources that we have, or that are provided for us by the university. So I'm just going to pop along this list through here. So, okay, quality. They want us to use the template. You'll find it pop up when your course is enabled. And actually, if you're teaching a course in the fall, it should already be there. You should already be able to start working with it. There are other links here. If we move across the line, planning strategies, I discussed them here. This is just some general outlines about how to plan your course. A lot of the stuff that we know if you've been teaching already, but it just reviews specifically for online instruction, best practices, how to deal with accommodations, so students who need more time to complete assignments and other things that we're going to end up running into, different scenarios. So there's some useful links here. The teaching tools link. There is a quick reference guide here that you can download. that talks about all the tools that I'm going to mention here. One thing that you should do is join the, if you haven't done this already, maybe all of you have, but join the Canvas course on Teaching Anywhere with Canvas. So that's another Canvas shell. So this again is the ADI Cafe Resources one. But if you go, there's also the one that you should join here if you don't have it already. I have a ton of modules here. Is this Teach Anywhere with Canvas course? You can join this. And this is the university's Canvas shell. So Carmen started one for our college. This is the university's. There are a bunch of modules here with instructions on how to get started with Canvas, instructional videos, how to set up. Again, we're working within the Canvas template that they provided. Communication tools. This has to do with, Olga mentioned setting up her syllabus, discussions, if you want to do discussions, setting up your course calendar. So many of these should probably be familiar to a lot of you. If not, this is not a bad resource to go. They do have how to create pages, and if other things that we'll talk about, like using Yuja and Zoom. So these are ways, again, to offer either synchronous or asynchronous video content. I think, if I'm right, Chris Shepard, you used Yuja this go around. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah, I did. Everything was, all the videos I made were hosted through Yuja and then embedded into Canvas, because Canvas doesn't have the memory space for video, really.
So when you did your Yuja videos,
Mhm.
did you do them in your course using Yuja in your course? So what I mean by that is, for example, if I go to my 366 course, and if y'all don't know this, so I'm sharing my screen here. This is my Fundamentals of Social Science course. If you go to settings, we all have access to Yuja. We all have access to Zoom. We can use all of these in Canvas. If you go to navigation, so go to your Canvas page, go to settings, go to navigation, and forgive me if I'm being, if you already have done this before, but you see there are resources here that you can then enable. So you can enable Zoom, which will then pop up into your, the tabs that you see. Yuja is here as well. I may already have it enabled. Oh, here it is. So you can enable Yuja, and now it's here, Yuja Media. You save those, and then if you go back, now they're present here on your left tab, so that when you're in your course homepage, you can do, so there are many ways in which you can create content. Chris, in your case, you pre-recorded videos, is that right? And then posted them?
Yeah, so I did two things. I pre-recorded videos, and then I posted them using Yuja, just like how you just added it to the Canvas page.
Yeah, so did you do it this way? So if you do Yuja Media, it's sort of embedded in Canvas, right?
Yeah, so then what I did was I would create a module, and then you can actually link the video directly into the page of that module.
Yeah, so what Yuja is basically just creating the video. This is a place to create your videos, a place to manage your media, so you can create different folders for different topical lectures that you've done. You can create recordings. You do have to download the application onto your computer, but you can then go in here and make videos, edit videos, upload that content. So that's built in. You can also do, we have Zoom, which we all know Zoom, which you can record videos using Zoom embedded in Canvas. You can schedule, I think Chris Matoka, did you do your Zooms this way? Or did you do a separate Zoom invite through the desktop?
Separate Zoom invite.
Okay, because in Canvas, you can actually have your course scheduled. And if you wanted to do synchronous, if my course is 11 to 12:15 Tuesday, Thursdays, and I wanted to teach 11 to 12:15 Tuesday, Thursdays, like Chris did, you can set up your schedule for a Zoom meeting where everybody will get it. It'll be accessed through Canvas. The Zoom link will be there. They'll be able to log on to Canvas, go to your Canvas page, and there will be the Zoom link, and everybody will be there. And you
I
can,
used the Zoom link through Canvas, and it worked really easy.
okay, great.
So can you record that way if you're doing Zoom through Canvas?
Yes, you can record
Yes.
the Zoom meeting.
And do they get stored? Like I ran into file storage issues like Chris. I couldn't post more than I couldn't post enough videos to cover the last half of the semester. So are they stored remotely? Can students still watch them without bumping into that?
So Uja's video storage is unlimited. The university has unlimited storage.
So I was still doing a synchronous class on Zoom and recording that for students that couldn't come.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like recording them separately.
Yeah, so I did the same thing. And I still posted all those videos into Uja and then linked them in using the app in Canvas.
So you recorded on Zoom, you linked it to Uja, which then linked to Canvas?
I actually used a different program. I used one called Screencast-O-Matic because it allowed me to edit it really easily.
I recorded all mine through Zoom, off the Zoom in Canvas, and then they showed up under Zoom. You go to where you can see on Dave's screen there, Cloud Recordings.
Yeah.
And I just clicked on Cloud Recordings, and after I edited them, I enabled them, and everyone showed, and I never had any comments back at it that they were out of storage. And so I had every lecture stored that way through Zoom, and I didn't have to go through anything else. I don't know if students went back and watched them, but I never had any complaints, and they always showed up.
So Aaron, were you recording in Zoom outside of Canvas or in?
I was recording in Zoom outside of Canvas. Yeah, I sent you a thing. I don't see this stuff in my settings for any of my courses. So I didn't know, like I went with what they told us the very first day this all started, which was record in Zoom, dump them in Google Drive. And then I had
Google Drive.
Ridiculous issues getting students to access their Google Drives. It was bad.
I actually did recording outside of Canvas too, but I only was sharing like links to the cloud recordings with the students. So all recordings were on the cloud, and I did it outside of Zoom, never ran into problem. I wonder because you use Google Drive.
Well, the problem is that everybody has unlimited storage on Google Drive too, but you have to sign in with your UK Google account, and apparently hardly any of them do that.
Yeah, that becomes a real problem because if you don't have the right email address, then you get all these emails about access, and it becomes a real headache. I do think a workaround is using the Zoom app in Canvas, because we are supposed to have 2 terabytes as a starting point in Canvas of storage. And the reality is it's supposed to be unlimited.
Okay.
Did you all get that?
I mean, mine, what's a terabyte? Is that 1,000 megabytes?
Gigabytes.
Don't ask me to do these things, man.
Yeah.
I can't find that anywhere in my settings, and
So you're saying if you go to settings for your course, like I just did here, and you go to, it is if it's going to work. So under settings, navigation, you should find all the different plugins here.
It is. I missed
that, so give that a try.
Passenger Pigeon. There's that something. Okay, I got it.
Works.
Yeah.
Aaron, you can
Everybody
also
still there?
You can link your Google Drive account as well.
Yeah, it was an access issue. They were all trying to access. So even though I made these really explicit instructions to them via Canvas announcements on how to do this, I requested access via my personal Gmail account. It's like, read the memo.
Yeah.
So that it was an access issue, but okay, this would have been a lot easier way to do it. I tried just posting the videos on Canvas, but then, yeah, I ran into storage issues, so. Okay.
So it sounds like, Todd, you use Zoom and Canvas. Chris, you use Yuja, but still had to go to an outside and then back in, right?
Yeah, so I scheduled all of our Zoom meetings through Canvas. And then I recorded it, basically my entire screen, through this other program that I was able to edit it within that program and then upload them to Yuja. So
All right.
I just didn't do my recordings through Zoom.
What's
Gotcha.
that called? Screen Master?
Screencast-O-Matic. It was something that, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name. Mike Wallace from Cell told me about.
Yeah, Rebecca McGrail used Screencast-O-Matic as well for Gen 100 this past semester. I'll provide a link for that.
Chris, what type of editing did you do?
I removed, like if there was, like if somebody asked a question or if there was some sort of identifiable information about that student, I removed it, portion of the video editing.
And Chris, I believe in Yuja, it does have video editing capabilities.
Yeah, I think the person, the Mike Wallace, I just don't know if he was familiar with the video editing in Yuja, and so that's why he told me about the Screencast-O-Matic. He might
because in Yuja you can add like a title slide, you can add background music, you can add fades and fade back in. You can go in and, like you just said, cut out identifiable information. Right. You know, it's going to become. Well, if any of you have watched YouTube and look at the people who do, I mean, it's a lot of work to run a YouTube page. It's a lot of work to run a course, to do all the video editing. It's consuming. That's why I think in the university webpage, one of their first things is don't be a perfectionist. Just get the content up there and then worry about perfection later at this point. And that was for those that were quickly transitioning over in the last semester. Maybe this summer we'll have a little bit more time to play. But you know, on this line, there's a lot of questions that are coming in. So at the Teach Anywhere webpage, just under Teaching Tools, which is where I'm at right now, a lot of the questions, there's a lot of tutorials here that they provided. So, you know, Canvas Home, online tutorials, just for if you're unfamiliar with using Canvas, there's a lot of information here. The stuff that we've talked about with Zoom, you know, resources for Zoom, getting Zoom into Canvas and how to set up meetings. We all should probably be pretty familiar with Zoom. I don't know if any of you use Teams. I've used Teams before. That's the Microsoft thing. It's a little clunky. If you're using Zoom, just keep using it. We'll get back to Respondus in a minute. And then there's Yuja. So there's a quick start guide to Yuja. There's getting started, you know, all these tutorial videos about how to use Yuja, how to edit the content, so there's a lot of, you know, we're going to have to do our own online courses to learn how to use these things so we can deliver it better to our students. But the links are all provided here for us to learn. So I think our best resources are, you know, Zoom and Canvas or Yuja and Canvas. At least those are the things, the low-hanging fruit. There are other apps, there are other add-ins that we can use for video hosting, but this may be the way to go. Anybody have any comments about that other than what we've just mentioned?
There's a few in chat, Dave.
All right. I'll get there. Sorry, I have to find all of them. I have dual screens, so I'm trying to find all my. All right, so somebody mentioned something about security. If you, on the webpage, so I don't know if you can see my comments here, the questions that are being asked, but there is under both on the UK, or sorry, on the ADI, on the Carmen's Canvas page that talks about Zoom. And in this page, they do talk about, and there's another place where I'll show you as well, how to prevent Zoom bombing. So what that means is you have to have a sign-in. Basically, your Zoom meetings have to have a login. And that's a way when you set up your Zoom meeting, you can go in. I don't know, for those of you that have done it, each meeting has to require a login. So you have to provide that information for them. Use the code, log in, that gets them in so that not just anybody can walk into your course. And I think this happened in one of the 4-H meetings or something like that. So that's one thing. So if I see, Aaron, you wrote the navigation tab, enable Zoom, but you have to make sure you scroll to the bottom and say save your changes. That's the only way it'll end up. Okay, she got it. Good. So make sure any changes you make when you go into settings, you have to save them. If you don't go scroll all the way to the bottom and hit save and go back to your main window, they won't be saved. Let's see. So any other specific question? I can answer a lot of these. I think that's most of them.
Dave, I'll ask, did anybody else just record through Zoom and Canvas and store the videos through Zoom?
I recorded on Zoom and just uploaded them to Canvas.
That's what I did.
That's what I did, Todd. I synchronously and recorded the lectures. So for those students who couldn't participate, and then I just uploaded them on Canvas, and I didn't actually have a storage issue. So,
mine would always record 3, the whole thing, audio only, and some other recording. How do I get rid of the all of them? I didn't need to. I stored all 3, but I didn't think I needed to. But I couldn't figure out how to delete 2 of the extra ones. Did anybody delete those?
I didn't. I just saved the one that I knew was the complete recording, saved it as whatever the lecture title was, and then.
So if you record right through Zoom, it downloads and unpacks it on your computer.
Right.
So you just delete them from your computer.
Right.
For the one you want and upload that back to Canvas.
I didn't do it that way. I did it through Canvas. And so they didn't download to my computer. They went directly to Canvas. And in Canvas, they had all 3 files, and I couldn't figure out how to get rid of them in Canvas. But I wasn't recording them onto my computer and then uploading them to Canvas. I was scheduling directly through Canvas.
Right.
So is there a way in Zoom or Zoom and Canvas to change the file size, like the recording, whatever it would be? I mean, I had enough storage in Canvas for like 2 weeks worth of lectures. Each one of my lectures was like, I don't know, 300-400 megabytes. Did I do that wrong too?
Maybe you're recording in HD, I don't know, 1080p or something, 4K, I don't know. You want high resolution?
Dave, I don't know what any of those words mean. No, I mean, that's what I'm asking. Is there a way to like change the recording? I poked around in Zoom, I couldn't, in Zoom, I couldn't find it. I also tried, did anybody try any video compression tools? Because I tried a bunch and none of them worked.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's more of a problem on the recording end, your end, than I don't think that you should have to go through this step of video compression. And I would like to try to avoid, recording, saving outside and having to bring back in, and then, that it's just an extra step for everybody. So if you can use the in Canvas embedded plugin for Zoom or use or the others, I think that's the better way of going about it. And the university is definitely going to have to address this. I'm guessing they're running after it now, is this space issue. Because with all of us now moving content online, video content, I don't know how they're going to handle. I can't remember who does our hosting. We have Google, but I thought we also used Amazon for Canvas. But anyway, we're everybody in the same boat. So just a quick question. Somebody did mention about Zoom and security. There is a link here, preventing bad actors, right? So there's a way here if you want to make sure that people don't Zoom bomb you, this is the way you do it. So you can follow those steps.
Also, Dave, with security, what really helps, it's not to allow sharing screen for anyone.
Yeah.
And then you can just enable if someone needs to share the screen in the class.
Yeah, that's
Then
right.
you know nobody comes in and puts their screen there.
Very good point.
That was
Very good
kind of
point.
sick.
Yeah, there's a ways, you know, when you're setting up your meeting, there's some advanced settings in Zoom that you can go in, like Olga said. You can say, you know, they're all participant cameras are off, you know, they can't share their screen unless they get permission. There are all these other settings that you should make sure that you do. And they do talk about those here in the getting started and holding class section of the Zoom tab. All right, so again, Zoom, UJA, those resources are here. One thing that has or will come up or has come up, and it gets into the synchronous and asynchronous delivery of your courses. You know, synchronous being you're teaching it at the normal time the course is taught and you're doing it live. And like Chris Matoka did and maybe Todd did and others, you're teaching it live, but you're also recording it and uploading it with the expectation that your students will then watch it later. Or you can just totally do it asynchronous where you record everything and just, again, with the expectation that your students are going to watch it later. But how do you assure that they're actually watching it? So there are ways in UJA, and the tutorials will go through that with you. And I don't know if Chris, you did this, Chris Shepard, but there are ways in which you require them to take quizzes. So, for example, you know then that the student went in and watched the video because at certain points during the video, they have to stop and take a quiz before they can proceed. So there is a way of gatekeeping and then assuring that they've gone in and watched it because there will be a quiz grade recorded for that. So those tools are there. Again, you're just going to have to watch the tutorials.
And Zoom doesn't have that function, does it?
Zoom has a polling option where you can actually poll within your synchronous. So if you're doing a synchronous lecture, you can do polls, ask a question and get response in chat windows or a polling response. So there is that option, but it doesn't get recorded. That's the problem. So a way of recording who's there is the problem, whether or not they've watched it.
Dave, I might add that I used, to follow up on what you said about the chat window, it'll save that data. And so when you ask questions, so I would do attendance that way at the beginning, and they would type their name in, and then I could save that after the recording's done and actually come back to it. And so I knew they were viewing it. Yeah. So.
No, I think that, that's another great way of doing it. It's a little bit more mechanical, which does require you then to go and type in and record everybody who was or wasn't there.
Right.
And, whereas with UJA, if you're doing the quiz, then again, if it's gatekeeping and they can't proceed without taking it, then it's automatic. It goes.
Right.
But yeah, that is another way in which to make sure they are watching our content. We all have students, even when you teach face-to-face, you see them the first day of class, you don't see them ever again, or you don't see them until exam day. So you can imagine a similar thing may very well happen in these circumstances, but you do want to make sure that they're at least looking at the content of the course.
When you do those quizzes, can you ask them like one question at a time? So stop every 10 minutes and ask a question. So it all goes to one quiz?
Yeah, absolutely. You can ask at whatever interval and however length of quiz you want to ask them. So, again, this is more of the time thing, because now we're all going to have to build this video content and then, just the scripting of all of this and putting in the questions. And so it's not a trivial task.
So I'm gonna ask a targeted question, Dave, and put you on the spot. Is this new format that makes everything look the same, is this really being requested by the students? Or is this idea coming out of administration only?
My feeling is it's administration. They're trying to unify a lot of things, and I think they're taking advantage of, like with our academic advising and many other things, that they're using this opportunity to I think to push us in that direction. The short of it is, I think it's, yes, it's from the top.
So above the college.
I think it's above the college. I think, it came out of Central Campus and then Carbon's adapting.
Yeah, okay.
I would just say, in their defense, I did one seminar where we looked at different shelves and stuff. Yeah, there's some really bad things out there that you couldn't find the information. So I think they're trying to make sure that it is easy for students to give us that guidance without, as Dave says, it takes away creativity, but also, enforces a certain minimal standard of usability too.
Yeah, Mike, I totally agree with you. Like I said when I started, I'm home teaching my kids every morning, and we're working in 6 different platforms, and I'm pounding my head against the table trying to figure out Google Classroom and all these other. It's hard. Each instructor putting something somewhere else, so I can understand the uniformity, a base level, and then they should let us build from that. So hopefully that's what it will become.
I'll go along with what Mike said, just from 2 things that came up for me. So I was in one group meeting, and the students were complaining. They were trying to pull up something that the instructor had posted, and the student, every instructor does Canvas differently. You can never find out where it's going to be posted. And then even in my TA said, when we're to the final classes, she goes, well, is the write-up for on the class paper, is that hidden? And I said, no, it's right under course organization. But if they didn't know where to click on files and course organization, and even though I had it linked multiple times, they didn't know where to go within Canvas, because there's so many different places you can set up Canvas. So twice in the last couple of weeks of the class, people were saying, students wanted more standardization in Canvas.
Yeah, I can see it. I mean, minimize the number of option bars you have on the left, right? It can be syllabus modules, whatever. Don't have 25 of them over there. And yeah, there are certainly ways to do it. And I think that's what they're trying to do. But at least, within our department, I mean, we can all we're going to use the template, and we can use similar delivery, either Zoom or Uja or something like that, in order to deliver our content. We'll be all right there. So just a brief, I do want to get to the Respondus thing in a minute. So there are these teaching tools. I'm going to go through the Teach Anywhere content. So instructional resources, I'm just moving on here. They do talk, again, there's more stuff in here under instructional resources about Zoom. There's the preventing bad actors stuff, how to get library resources and whatnot in there. And then, so the last bit, but I'll just come back to saying, we're talking about making sure that students watch our videos, the time that we're putting into making our lectures, and ensuring that they're participating in our class. So embedded quizzes in Uja, for example. But then the other question is, how in the world do you administer an exam? Now, I know all of you administered quizzes and exams this semester. So there are ways. How many of you used an online proctoring service to administer your exams? Many of you? You can just speak up. What I mean is, did you use Respondus? Did you use ProctorU? Anyone?
No.
Okay. All right, so this is definitely something that, I mean, I think a lot of what ended up happening was we gave the students their final exam, and it was sort of open note, open book, take the exam sort of thing. But we know that we were in a pickle. We had to do what we had to do. But under teaching tools here again, there is this, and you should familiarize yourself with Respondus. So there are two things here, and I have again a link on the web, on the Word document that I sent you. For Respondus Lockdown Browser and Respondus Monitor. These are free for the students. For you, you do include this in Canvas. So this is my Canvas course shelf from PLS 366. You can again do the same thing where you go to settings and you can add in, so settings, navigation, you all have this. Respondus, I may already have it enabled, but it will show up. Oh, there it is. Lockdown browser, this lockdown browser. So well, the reason I'm pointing this out is what this does is that if you have the lockdown browser enabled, any of the quizzes or exams that you create, so I'm gonna go down here and save this, so now it'll appear in my sidebar. And if I go to home, so the lockdown browser's here, and any quizzes that you've created. So there's a tutorial that you can go through, and it'll tell you about what I'm going to tell you right now. But for example, the exams, so this is one of the exams in my class. You can go through and say whether or not, so the student can go take this exam, and what it does is it does what it says right there. It locks down the browser. The student can't print, they can't look at any other, they can't go to any other web resource. It locks everything down. So they can't peruse the internet, they can't, so anything at least with that, they can't email, so they can't copy the questions and email them to their friends. They can't print off all the questions. They're just locked into taking that quiz, and they can't unlock it until they're done with the exam or quiz. So they're in. That does not prevent them from picking up their phone and just, texting or having another computer sitting beside them and doing it that way. So that's why there's two. This is the lockdown browser, and the other resource is the and I have it linked on that document that I send you. There's a lockdown browser, but then there's the monitor. So what the monitor does, and this is like Big Brother, a little nefarious, but the monitor does just that. It actually has facial recognition. It uses the computer's camera, built-in camera, or your laptop. So it does require that the student have a camera, and it takes a little bit of time in the beginning to recognize the individual's face. It actually even may ask them to do a little look around where they're at, and then it will monitor them while they're taking. So in addition to the lockdown of the browser, it will use their camera to periodically and randomly take pictures of them while they are taking the exam quiz. And it uses that to see, where their eyes are looking and whether or not they leave the room or whether or not their brother comes in and helps them with the exam. So it's monitoring them. It's looking at them through the computer. So these are two resources that we have available to us to administer exams to the students from their comfort of their beds, but making sure that they are not cheating.
So does that alert you, or do you have to go through the footage, or how does that?
Great. So that's a great question, Mike. And if you watch the video, it's really it answers those questions, but quickly. It records those snapshots, and you can go back if you want, and it will alert you if they left the room, or if there was some nefarious activity they were looking, or it looked obvious that they were not paying attention. It has a way of identifying that, or you can go back and actually watch every video just to make sure. So if a student does miraculously well on their exam, but is failing everything else, you might want to go back and check the video out to see whether or not how it is that they did so well in the exam, but are failing everything else. So that may be one instance in which you would want to go watch those videos. Otherwise, I guess you could rely on the program. I've never actually used the I've used the lockdown browser, but I've never used the monitor before. So that is one way. There is also ProctorU. Has anybody ever used ProctorU before? So ProctorU is what the university uses for the students who need to take their ALEX exam. So the ALEX exam is their math placement exam for freshmen that are coming into the university. And if they haven't, you can take your ALEX exam unproctored or proctored. That gives you a little score to tell you what math course you can take, Math 109, Math 123, or if you're in the APP. Students can take it unmonitored, but we don't really, often the university requires that it be monitored, and one of the ways they do that is with ProctorU. But they have to pay. So for the ALEX exam, you don't have to pay. They give you a free card for that, but that's because it's a university required exam. But for us, if we wanted to use ProctorU or U, the students would have to pay, I think it's $20 a course. That's a whole different platform. I think you actually are proctored, and you have to the student has to set the time. It has to be 72 hours in advance. So it's a little bit more onerous and time consuming and, expensive. So I think Respondus is the way that the university is going, which is why they have it posted on their teaching tools here.
So I tried to do the Respondus, and it seems like a lot of devices, it's just not possible. So some of the students in my class, they couldn't make it work.
Yeah, this is my biggest worry, Hannah. I absolutely agree. I mean, we're assuming some level of accessibility to cameras, to a functioning laptop or and it's way too easy for a student to say, oh, my camera's broken, or I don't have the capability. So, particularly in the bigger courses, I mean, your course, I don't know how many students you had. It was 8 or 10, 12 students, but when you have a class of 80, it's going to get.
We had 18, and there were probably 2 or 3 that just couldn't make it work. So
yeah.
And I talked to Celt about it, and they said, yeah, it's just that Chromebooks, it's not compatible with certain devices.
Yes. So thinking about that, and then, thinking about then how we're assessing our students. If the predominant mechanism in your class was 3 exams, or 2 exams, a midterm and a final, and that's how it was the primary way in which you evaluated your students, you may have to rethink that. Because if it's if you don't have the capacity or the ability to proctor the exam, then there's no good way of assuring that they're not looking elsewhere. Or you do what maybe Mark can chime in here. You give them every resource in the world, and you make the exam compatible with that format, whether that be a harder exam, or one that requires them to dig more, write more, think more.
I knew there was at least one student who was working full-time during the day and was doing all of the work asynchronously. There was at least 2 other students who had kids, and it would have been horrific for them to try and take a timed exam. And everything that I've seen says it's simply cruel to have an online timed exam for individuals who are in constrained circumstances, either because of conflicts or because of limitations in their access. So what I tried to do is I had a weekly quiz, I had a daily question that they had to answer for each class session. I had writing assignments, but then it was a single final examination that they had 12 hours to complete. And I tried to design that examination so sure, they could Google it. They could call up their friends. They could work together on that exam. But the questions were designed so they'd have to think through it. And if they took too long to look up the information, they weren't going to be able to complete the exam. And I figured as long as they were having to look up the information, they were at least getting some additional knowledge through that particular search. So I thought it worked well enough under these circumstances because in part, with the graduate level class, I want to encourage cooperation. I want the students to work together to figure out problems. And they would be the sorts of questions where you couldn't Google it. You would have to think about the concepts in order to figure out what was going on. And if you didn't understand, you would be going out and getting help. And in that other person explaining what was going on, they'd have the learning experience too.
I did that too for my 300 level class, except I gave them 5 days and it was all open everything. And it's as you would predict, right? Like a handful of students ace it. Some of them just don't. And then some of them, it's really fucking bad. There were 6 questions, right? 6 essay questions, multiple parts. And anybody, if you even just went and opened up the PDFs of the presentations that I gave, even if you didn't watch any of the videos, you could have at least done 80%. So I think it's.
Well, what I ended up doing, my standard examination, I have 40 questions that I asked them, but I said, you only have to answer 20. Now that 40 questions comprise the entire duration of the course, but it gave them the opportunity to say, I know this stuff. There's at least half of the course that I know really well. So if for any reason there was part of the course that they simply didn't get, they didn't really have to demonstrate their ignorance. They had the opportunity to show me what they really knew. And I liked that approach. I thought it worked really well. And yeah, there were some students who you imagine, how could they not have gotten 100% on this exam with 12 hours to complete it? But they just sort of answered what they could. They didn't put the effort. The ones who put the effort in aced it, and you could tell that they were really diligently looking at the information and the questions that they knew a good answer to.
So half enough is good enough.
For me, half enough is good enough for under the circumstances, and they were able to demonstrate they knew it well. They may have understood all of it. They may have been able to answer 40 questions. It's just that given the amount of time that I was asking them to spend, they were demonstrating competence in at least 50% of the material that I presented. And if you think about retention for a course, that's if they're retaining 50% of the information 200% longer, that's a better odd or a better return on investment than if they core dump everything 24 hours after the course is done.
Having done both models where you do kind of like a slow, steady stream of material that all counts towards their grades for the whole semester versus kind of more bigger things. I mean, they're both kind of a slog, right? Like grading 26 question essays kind of sucked, but it also sucks to have to do grading for everything, like all of your classes repeatedly throughout the semester. But it seems like that former model is going to be the way that it goes if you can't rely on exams so much. I just can't imagine doing that for an 80 student class. Like that would.
Yeah, I mean,
that would suck.
Coming back to that point, so I teach 100 level PLS 103. I have 60 students in general. Do you have any recommendations of what not to do? Because whatever you said, it's great, but I don't think I have energy to do that one. And then is it a good idea to ask like what 50% of material should be good for 100 level, or do you have any opinions on this?
I think that if that's like a 100 level course, it's a prerequisite for something else. That 50% is not gonna be really gonna work if the next classes that they take rely on that information, them knowing that information.
You also though can't really expect them to have to do the kind of interpretation that like Mark tested them on, and then
right. Okay.
Right.
And I also feel like a 12-hour exam is not fair because, they have a whole number of finals that they have to take during finals week. And we have 2-hour time slot.
Yeah.
So taking up 12 hours, I feel like is not fair.
Well, in this case, it wasn't taking up 12 hours. Anytime during that 12-hour period, they could take the exam.
But my students ended up taking the entire day to work on the exam.
That's up to them how they partition their time. I think it's a lot more fair than saying you must appear in this 2-hour slot. And regardless of what happens in that 2-hour slot, you've got to finish the exam.
Yeah, I think it's hard either way. I mean, I think if I know for me as a student, if you gave me 12 hours, I'd use 12 hours. I mean, I just know how I am. And I think there are students that are that way. And then there are the others that will, I'm going to give this 2 hours and tell you what I know and what I don't know.
Is it possible that you can have an open window, but only you can log in and then spend time for 1 hour for completing your test? So once you log in, you only have 1 hour within this 12-hour window.
Yeah, Canvas does this. I mean, if you can set time limits, you can set, I mean, just within Canvas, you can set windows of availability. You can set, once you start it, you can't restart it. Once you start it, you have to finish it, but you only have 3 hours. You can set all those parameters inside of Canvas.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I don't know the function. Okay.
Dave, because of the problems with assessment, is there a possibility that if we are at least reasonably functional in the fall semester, that the way that finals week would work would be a very special attempt made for a more regularized examination protocol, i.e. don't do it through Canvas, i.e. do it in an environment that's perhaps a bit more typical of what we've experienced in the past, so we don't have to go through things like the monitoring and the other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think if students are on campus, we can rotate them through. Is that what you're saying? I mean,
something. I mean, I have no idea how this would look. I just wondered if there's been any discussion about being a bit more special about this.
Yeah, I think like Rebecca said at the beginning, though, I mean, the sands are shifting. Like, we don't even know, is it going to be freshmen and seniors? We just don't know.
Sure.
So I think we need to plan for everything.
Okay.
So Larry, I see you have a comment here about built-in survey functions in Canvas. This is getting a little bit to what Tomo was asking. I mean, there are ways of doing pre and post assessment in Canvas. I mean, there are ways of, mini quizzing, take this assessment, then complete this module. Now take the assessment again to gauge learning and understanding. So what you knew before, what you knew after the module. I think this is, like I was saying before, if it's a course that just relies on 2 exams for the final grade, we may have to think about eking out or spreading out, or a way of pre and post assessing assignments to gauge. We have just different ways of gauging understanding, and it is going to result in more work for us, I think, on the grading side of things. If you're not using built-in quizzing and exam functions in Canvas, which auto grade, if you are relying, like Aaron, on essay responses, I mean, it can be a mix in Canvas too. It's just you have to go in and grade the essay questions manually. But there is a lot of functionality in Canvas itself for administering exams. It's just the proctoring part of that, right? Unless you're using Respondus, then there's no way of assessing whether or not they've stayed within their browser or not. But it could be a combine like Mark did. I mean, fine, ask them it's not going to be a simple true, false, yes, no, select, multiple choice question. It's going to have to be a little bit more probing, where, the search for the answer, they're learning as they're going. But I do worry, like Hannah said, if the students are like I was, I mean, you would spend hours. You could spend hours trying to find the right and best answer and be the perfectionist in it. Then we get in the accommodations and how the different students learn. So,
well, I always give my take homes over the course of days, right? Yeah. So if you are that student, you can take a whole day. If you're not, most of them you started 2 hours before it's due. I tried to get clarification from Carmen about whether that was legit this time around, and I didn't quite get an answer on that, because I distributed it the last day of classes, and then it was due on their regularly scheduled exam time, which was 5 days later. And I told them too, I was like, if you've got all your shit due this day, just let me know. You can turn it in late. And a handful of them took me up on that offer. But that's, you know, that's kind of like exceptional policy that we wouldn't do normally.
Well, I'll make two comments. One to John, is it going to be something special for final exams? I don't know, but I clicked through the preliminary comments on 4 ways to open the university, and it seemed like the majority of them said finals online after Thanksgiving. So I don't think they're really thinking of a in-class finals. The other one is with Canvas, just one horror story. I mean, there are a lot of testing ways in Canvas, and I found it to work really well. But when I had the one-timed exam, it was during the day that Canvas was crashing all across the U.S. I had to open that exam 3 times, flick through 3 different exams for each student, so they didn't get the same questions multiple times, and took a long time to grade. But just had to be flexible and can't penalize the students for problems. But it was when Canvas crashed during the exam, it was problematic.
Yeah, let's just be ready. Have your bourbon bottle close. It's gonna be a ride when everybody's trying to administer their exams through Canvas at the end. You know, who knows what might happen. So one thing, Todd, that we're dwindling on time here, but I did want to bring up is, like for my 366 course, we have labs, and we do pride ourselves in our college on the experiential learning. So how it is that we're going to handle labs that have a field component, and what do we do in those circumstances? So the way that I've been thinking about 366 for the fall is that the course and lecture part will most likely be taught. Now my expectation is students will be on campus. It's a junior, senior level course. We do get sophomores in there, but that the lecture itself would be synchronous, asynchronous, online, and that the labs, since the labs only have usually from 12 to 15, 16, 17 students, that we could probably get away with teaching those face-to-face. We'll see, face-to-face with masks on. So how did you handle that, Chris Matoka, this semester? Did you finish out the labs, or was it for your course, or anybody else who had labs? What did you do with the labs?
Just tried to embed. I think you sent me a video or 2 on
yeah, so infiltration,
density and some other things you would record. So I just did that and just didn't count the points against them. I mean, there was physically no way we could go out there. You could just try to say, here's what you would see if you were out there. But
so I'll say that is one of the bigger time sinks, at least for me right now, is having to produce. Now, I started this years ago under a grant that I got from Larry when Larry was ADI, to get a camera and start videoing, getting video content from my labs and beginning to build video modules for the different labs. So we're all going to have to think about that too. And how does that work in the lab at the bench, right? So Mark's done this semester, where you have a video camera in there and you go through the procedure and you're videotaping yourself doing it. And then, yeah, so
Thanks, Dave.
That's a little flip video camera that I had from years back, and I hope that worked out well. But we'd have to think about, what I'm getting here is that experiential component that we may very well be losing, and that we have to give to them in video with us going out and doing it. So it's not easy.
That's
my biggest worry there is not once you were there where you could spread out, but how do you get them there? I mean, 10 people in a van or 30 people in a bus, I don't think that's going to be allowed. And so you expect students to drive. I don't think you can do that. So I'm really struggling about how we're going to do 386 labs this fall.
Yeah, I was for 366, everything was just going to be online. So I was going to dig a soil pit right outside of Carmen's office. I'm kidding.
It didn't sound like it.
Although it's an idea, but we can do infiltration and bulk density and those sort of things. Anything we can do on campus.
Just find one of the construction sites on campus or close by.
Oh, plenty. But we do have the Now, if you have a lab section like mine that's 14 students and we do have a bus, I mean, can't they do like the airplanes where every middle seat is empty and every other row is empty and they just have to sit all far apart? It's a 30-seat bus. We put 14 in there, every other seat. It's not going to happen.
I'm not optimistic, Dave.
No. So we just, that's the point. We got to think about how we do those things on campus.
Well, I recorded a bunch of field trips, and the suggestion to me was to go live in the field with Zoom or Facebook Live or something so that students could ask questions. But yeah, that's kind of a disaster too. Because one, you know, I have, what am I going to use like all of my family's data plan to do my teaching? And not to sound like, you know, whiny and bitchy about it, but it's a concern, right? When you're like, I had 2 lab classes this semester, so that's 12 labs out in the field. Like, it wasn't going to work. So I tried to record field trips, but then they don't have the opportunity to ask questions. And I started thinking about like trying to split labs into smaller sections even to get them out. But then,
well, so the way that I'm doing it with 366 is we already taught the course in this mini lecture format. So you come in, you give a 10-minute lecture on a topic, we do something, right? And then you regroup, do a little, you know, talk about it, do something else. So if you have a video module, you could actually do it synchronously with those 14, 15, 18 students for the lab, where you all watch the video together and you were there explaining, I'm doing this and we do this and we do that. And you come back together and you have a discussion, you know, write on the whiteboard in Zoom or something, and then go do their video, and then you can show them pipetting or doing whatever. That's the way I'm going to do it. Do these mini lecture formats where we have a mini video out in the field doing this thing, and I'm explaining what I'm doing. We come back, have a discussion, and I provide them with the data.
I tried that too. I tried them to collaborate on Google Docs, for example, and half of them have no idea how to do that.
Yeah, well, that's going to be a headache because a lot of our students don't even know how to use Excel.
Yeah.
But then, you know, there's a ton of tutorials in YouTube on how to use Excel, and those are all, I post all those on my webpage. It's just, there's going to be some onus on those students to make sure they learn it.
Yeah. And then the identification heavy part of my class, I don't have a model for that yet.
Yeah.
Have them go take weed selfies, I guess, but.
Weed selfies, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
You don't sound enthusiastic.
Yep, Chris?
In addition to the challenge of experiential learning, I know Jimmy has a question there in the chat room about how do we handle keeping the students engaged? And one thing everyone ought to know is I discovered in Zoom there's a whiteboard. You can, so it's actually very useful because going through calculations of, you know, conversions and these sorts of things, both in the intro soils and clay minerals class, it was very useful. And in the intro soils, they would even chat in, could you go through that calculation again? And so that whiteboard's very, very useful in Zoom. And so anyway, it was kind of a nice tool to keep students engaged.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Exactly. Yeah, switch over to the whiteboard.
That gets saved.
Go ahead,
too.
Aaron. Yeah.
If you're recording, it gets saved. So you can post
Great
it
point, Aaron. It does get saved. And in fact, students said my handwriting was neater using whiteboard on Zoom than it was on the dry erase board in class. So
yeah,
pretty nice.
All right.
Mike, how did you finish up the wine tasting class this semester?
How did I finish it up?
He drank all the wine.
He's still feeling the effects of it.
It's actually all stored in my basement. I did offer them the option of watching me drink it, and none of them took it. Yeah, we just went to basically all quizzes, all based. Yeah, I talked about the wines they would have tasted and the types and all that, and they did still have an outside class tasting assignment that basically they all did. Yeah, so I'm thinking about different options for the fall that way. And nobody's ever answered the 2 questions. Did they get any of their money back from the lab fee this semester? And if they're not in class drinking wine, will they not pay one next semester? So can I expect that they can still spend some of that money outside of class. So yeah, so we'll do some, and I'm still working. Sometime we can talk about the synchronous, asynchronous thing. I heard Mark talking about how things you want to allow for asynchronous, and I did asynchronous, but I don't want to do that again. I want to do at least some synchronous stuff where we work through wines together as a group, partly to build some community within the course itself. So a mask with holes, we're looking into those too. Yeah, that's a Kentucky thing I heard.
So I hadn't thought about that, but the lab fee thing will apply to a lot of you guys. So we'll just have to wait and see what they're going to tell us about that. If you can really continue to charge a lab fee if they're not going to be able to do anything with the consumables.
And one advantage I think we all had this semester was that we already, like, the rapport of the class was already established, right? So there either was community or they hated it. And I had both this semester. And the ones where we had like a good rapport with each other, I had really good attendance at my synchronous lecture. And the other one, they weren't there. So I don't, like, that's going to be the hard part, I think, with this fall, is establishing an actual class.
Yeah, we better all start.
Thing too. So that was tough. Once we are on all coasts, so that would have been really hard to do synchronous.
We all better go to YouTube and look at how to, be video producers. I mean, we're going to have to be entertainers here, because it's going to look pretty damn boring with, toilet paper backgrounds, or, looking at the blank wall of your offices is for 45 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes. In a lecture will be pretty boring.
I thought you had that background so they knew where to find what they needed, Dave.
No, just hoarding my resources over here. Anyway, we have 2 minutes. Any last dying comments?
To follow up on Mike and Aaron's comment, to build on that about synchronous, I started off asynchronous, Mike, and then I ended up switching to synchronous. And as Aaron pointed out, I already knew a fair amount of the students, and it really helped build some connectivity, I think, to the students. And there's, you can talk about content for 60 minutes or so. In the last 15, we might talk about, what to watch on Netflix. I mean, which sounds really wild, but going back to Dave's point, it's kind of tough to just plow through 70 PowerPoint slides. It's not going to happen, and to retain that content. So
I was in a very small Italian class myself, 5 students, and actually we look forward to the Zoom meetings because we basically are catching up with each other and how they're doing. So we did as much of that as we did Italian.
And you can have them show their pets and their kids. And
that's right.
And I have this one to, like, well, you can't see her, but once a lecture, she would run across the screen or step on all the keys and jump up on the ceiling. And so there are ways that you can try to keep them engaged.
Right.
The one thing I got from watching one of those videos on teaching remotely for the summer, but it was, we're all conscious about you should break up a 50-minute lecture class into pieces, but they said it's even more important on when you're online, and that you should never go more than 10 minutes without a break, and the ideal is 6. And so I need to think about how to put in breaks instead of just, like Chris says, going through my standard lecture.
Quizzes for credit.
Yep. Quizzes, polling. I tried all those, but yeah, 6 minutes isn't very long.
You're going to run through a lot of tricks if you do it every 6 minutes.
I figured
my bag of 2 tricks got tapped.
One other piece of thing that somebody I'm working with told me, just because it's online, don't think you have to make more work for them or for you. And so I'm trying to keep it in the same relative expectations of workload.
Yeah.
I would say that from my daughter's perspective and being at home, her teachers have figured out to just do 4 days, and they don't all give assignments every day. They give multiple days to work on them, and then Friday is a catch-up day. And I think it is because the initial tendency was just to pile on them, and it is easy to assign a bunch of work to students when you're not dealing with it. And so I'm sure many of you guys have kids at home and are watching it too, but it is easy to overload them. And so I think that's a good point, Mike.
All right.
If you guys want to do more of these, I mean, it's obviously easy to set up. So if this is plenty of food for thought, or you want to have once a month check-in in June and July, August, and see what people are doing, I mean, we're happy to facilitate whatever might be useful for you all.
I think it's a good idea, especially as we figure out exactly what fall's going to look like.
Right.
You know, once that picture becomes clear, maybe it's not a bad idea that we circle the wagons again and see where everybody's at.
All right, so let's wait for our mid-June reopening plan from the president. Take a look at that, and then we'll try to set something up for maybe another call for maybe the last or fourth week of June for everybody.
Cool.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah,
thanks,
thank you guys.
Rebecca, Abby.
Thank
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Guys, yep, have a good Thursday, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye now.
Bye.